Congratulations! You just entered the system as a sensor operator. You aren't flying the MQ-9 Reaper yet. That's for the officers. But you are the specialized eyes of the machine. Your office is a climate-controlled ground control station, a windowless shipping container buried in the Nevada desert, where the air smells of ozone and stale energy drinks. You report to a pilot who sits 3 feet to your left, and a legal team at Central Command who monitors your feed from 1,000 miles in another direction. Your daily reality is a high-definition voyeurism. You spend 12 hours a day staring at a courtyard in a country you will never visit, watching a man's life unfold in thermal white hot. You know what he eats, how he limps, and how he greets his youngest daughter. It is a strange, godlike intimacy that costs the taxpayer roughly $3,500 an hour in flight time. Your paycheck is modest, standard military grade, enough for a reliable truck and a studio apartment, but the hardware you manage is worth $20 million. You control the laser designator, the sparkle that guides a $100,000 Hellfire missile onto a target who might be worth less than the scrap metal of his moped. This is a performance-based organization with unusually strict termination policies, mostly for the people on the screen. When the order finally comes, the JAG officer clears the strike, and you hold the crosshairs steady. The screen flashes, the heat signature blooms, and then you stay on station for 6 more hours to document the wreckage. You've earned their congratulations for a clean hit, but the system already has 10 recruits waiting for your seat if your eyes start to wander. You go home, try to sleep, and find yourself subconsciously checking the corners of your ceiling for infrared strobes. They congratulated you on your 98% target identification accuracy. You've been pulled out of the general rotation and assigned to a project management cell, military shorthand for an elite hunting party. You are now the Lead Targeting Analyst. You no longer just stare at one screen, you curate a mosaic of signals intelligence, cell phone pings, and satellite imagery. Your reports don't stop at a captain, they go to a colonel who briefs the Pentagon before the sun rises on the East Coast. You are the architect of the pattern of life dossier. You decide when a gathering is a wedding and when it is a logistics meeting for a provincial shadow governor. Your income is shifted. There are now special duty stipends and a retention bonus designed to make you forget that you've spent the last 6 months living in a permanent twilight. Your authority has expanded to overseeing 4 junior sensor operators who look to you for the final valid target confirmation. This is where the insulation begins to thin. You aren't just watching the screen anymore, you are interpreting the silence. The pressure is no longer about technical skill, it's about the political cost of a kinetic error. If a Hellfire hits a hospital because your nodes were mislabeled, the system won't blame the pilot or the JAG. They will look at the architect. Your personal life has become a series of compartmentalized lies. You've stopped attending family dinners because the sight of a crowded table makes you instinctively calculate the blast radius of a GBU-12. You mistake your rising heart rate for confidence, but it's actually the realization that you are becoming too valuable to ever let go. You've moved from being a tool to being an asset, and assets are never left unguarded. You've successfully navigated the revolving door between the Department of Defense and the private sector. Congratulations are now expressed in performance-based equity and ironclad non-disclosure agreements. You are no longer a soldier, you are a senior strike architect for a private military subsidiary that doesn't technically exist on public filings. Your daily life involves optimizing the digital kill chain, integrating AI-driven facial recognition with orbital sensor suites to shorten the time between detection and liquidation. You report to a regional director in a glass and steel tower in Northern Virginia, someone who speaks in terms of market share and disruption while reviewing satellite feeds of burning motorcades. You control the algorithmic priorities of an entire theater, deciding which insurgent factions are lucrative enough to eliminate and which are too expensive to track. Your income is tripled, easily clearing the $250,000 mark, but you've traded the protection of a uniform for the cold vulnerability of a corporate contract. If a kinetic incident occurs that draws international scrutiny, the company won't court-martial you. They will simply delete your server access and let the congressional subcommittee find an empty chair. Your behavioral shift has transitioned from mere adjustment to total rationalization. You view civilian casualties as algorithmic noise and collateral damage as a friction cost in a high-velocity environment. You've stopped talking to your old military buddies because they still care about the why. You only care about the how. You sleep 4 hours a night, waking up to check global terror alerts and the company's stock price simultaneously. You are now a profitable ghost, a man who moves millions in hardware, but can't tell his own mother what he does for a living. You mistake silence for congratulations. In this tier of the gray zone, verbal praise is considered a security leak. You are now the theater operations director for a managed risk strike initiative. You no longer oversee individual missiles. You curate the entire kill list for a specific geographic sector, likely the Horn of Africa or the Levant. You report to a political liaison, a man with 3 passports and no official title, who visits your secure facility only to remind you that your budget is contingent on theater stability. You control the life cycle of thousands. You decide who lives to be an intelligence source and who becomes a smudge on a thermal map. Your income has transcended a salary. It is now a series of consulting fees wired to offshore entities, ensuring your financial future is as untraceable as your operations. Your authority is absolute within your sector, but your legal protection has vanished. You are the operational layer that exists solely to provide plausible deniability to the people who write your checks. If a high-profile kinetic event draws international scrutiny, you are the inconvenient witness whose digital signature is on every authorization. The psychological shift has moved into the realm of clinical suspicion. You've replaced your personal cell phone with a rotation of encrypted burners and stopped sleeping in the same bed for more than 2 consecutive nights. You watch the news not for information, but to see if your work has been leaked by your own customers. Your family believes you are a high-level logistics consultant for a global shipping firm, a lie you maintain with such surgical precision that you've started to forget the names of your own nieces. You are the most powerful man in a room that doesn't officially exist, which makes you the easiest person to erase when the geopolitical wind changes. Congratulations are now classified. At this level, a handshake is a security breach, and a smile is a tactical error. You are no longer a participant in the strike. You are the strategic architect of the Hemispheric Stability Protocol. You report to a shadow undersecretary, a man whose signature appears only on documents that technically won't exist for another 50 years. Your daily routine is a high-stakes auction of sovereignty. You decide which proxy forces receive the God's Eye feed, and which regional leaders find themselves on the wrong end of an unattributed kinetic event. You control the shadow budget of a medium-sized nation, moving billions through shell companies to fund the very hardware you once operated in a shipping container. Your income is now a series of 7-figure deferred compensation grants held in trust by firms that specialize in making people and their money vanish. The authority is intoxicating, but the isolation is absolute. You've moved from rationalization to pure, unadulterated suspicion. You no longer watch the screen. You watch the people watching the screen, looking for the telltale flicker of a whistleblower or a double agent. Your personal life has been entirely replaced by a series of operational cover identities. You haven't used your real name in a public space for 3 years. You've realized that the digital kill chain you helped build is bidirectional. You spend your nights scanning the horizon from your fortified high-rise, not for intruders, but for the silent, high-altitude hum of a reaper. You are a strategic pillar of the system, which makes you the most significant point of failure should the wind shift toward accountability. You are beginning to realize that in this game, the removed stage isn't a retirement, it's a cleanup operation. The congratulations stop. In their place is a sterile, deafening silence that signals your transition from an asset to a liability. You are currently the principal advisor for a classified decommissioning project, which is a polite way of saying you are the designated fall guy for a decade of, quote, unattributed strikes. You report to a rotating panel of anonymous auditors and a lead counsel who reminds you every 30 minutes that your immunity is purely discretionary. Your daily life is a frantic exercise in information containment. You are no longer deciding who dies in the Levant, but which of your own subcontractors needs to vanish to keep a Senate inquiry from reaching the strategic level. You control a massive legal defense fund, millions in offshore escrow, but you can't use it to buy a cup of coffee without triggering 3 separate federal alerts. Your authority has been inverted. You are now the most scrutinized node in the very network you designed. The risk isn't a missile anymore. It's a sealed indictment or a quiet heart attack in a secure holding cell. You've moved into a state of hypervigilant detachment. You look at your former colleagues and realize they aren't friends. They are witnesses for the prosecution. You spend your nights analyzing your own pattern of life data, searching for the same anomalies you once used to justify a liquidation. It's a performance-based organization with unusually strict termination policies, and you've just realized the performance review is over. You are no longer the operator, you are the evidence. The system is beginning to purge its own memory, and you are the largest file on the drive. No one congratulates you anymore. You have transitioned from a person of interest to a historical anomaly, archived in a ledger that will never see the light of a declassification hearing. Your daily life is a static loop in a residence of convenience, a high-security villa in a non-extradition territory where the staff doesn't speak your language and the Wi-Fi is a digital cage. You report to a sustainability liaison, who is effectively your palliative care specialist in the art of disappearance. You control nothing except the order in which you eat your tasteless, pre-screened meals. Your earnings are now purely theoretical, millions in legacy credits held in offshore trusts that will only be released to your distant estate once your silence is biologically guaranteed. The risk has reached its logical conclusion. You are the last surviving witness to a decade of strategic anomalies, making you the only obstacle to a clean institutional record. Your psychological state is one of absolute, clinical, hollowed-out peace. You no longer watch the exits because you know there aren't any. You've become the ultimate pattern of life study, a solitary heat signature on a monitor in a room 3,000 miles away, waiting for a precisely timed malfunction of your own heart or an unfortunate kitchen fire. You realize, with a touch of dry irony, that the system's termination policy is the only thing it ever executed with 100% efficiency. You look up at the clear blue sky, the same sky you once used as a cloak, and realize that congratulations was always just military shorthand for "you're next."